Hey friends, hope you all are well and keeping safe. My name is Shantanu Barua, and today I'm going to talk about a book called Talking to Strangers, written by Malcolm Gladwell. This, by no means, is a book review, rather, more of my reflections and learnings as I read the book. Before I begin, a few words on Malcolm Gladwell. By far, one of the most prominent author of the recent times. All his creation, Tipping Point, Blink, Outliers, are all written with deep research. This book is also as such. He brings all the data together, put his analytical lens on top of it, and draws conclusion and sees things like nobody else can. I have three reflections from this book. The first one is defaulting to truth. Let me take an example. When Wikipedia was first formulated, no one believed the idea because it was created by common people such as you and me and written by people for people. There were no, as such, oracles sitting behind the scene writing the facts. And no one believed that. How can we trust a system like that? Here we are. 95% of the data is accurate. Google, when you search, defaults to Wikipedia. And we all, I'm sure, if you have done a Google search, one point or the other in life has used Wikipedia. Another example that I want to take is from the book itself. This is about a spy with the name Ana Montes. She was a Cuban spy working for CIA in the early 90s. For a long time, over a decade, no one actually found that she was a spy working for the Cuban government. If you recall, 90s was a time for Fidel Castro. It was high in the agenda. US had almost a Cold War going with Cuba at that point in time. And this lady was right there spying on information, passing it back to the government. She had a very unique way. She never used to take any media or take any pictures. All she used to do is memorize what she could do in the daytime, come back home, write it down, and personally hand it over to some of the people who can take it back to the Cuban government. It's not that they were not signs, there are plenty of signs that she has given, but as the word says, people were defaulting to truth. No one believed that she could be a spy. One example taken in the book was back in the 90s, there was some shooting done of planes where the US citizens were there, and there was a warning issued just before the shooting. US government didn't take it seriously because this was given as a passe comment by one of their marshal to a senior general. There was a gentleman named Rex Brown. His job is to look at anomalies in CIA, and he saw a very unique pattern. How can this be as picture perfect? US plane shot down, warning given a day before, and no one acted upon it. And as he was trying to put the facts together, the common name that came was Ana Montes, and she was the one who arranged the meeting between the Cuban government and the US government. And again, just to let you know, which I have not mentioned before, Anna is a Cuban by nature, but she was residing in the US, Florida, at that particular point in time. Well, he doubted, he asked questions, he interviewed Anna, he also asked the boss, but everyone defaulted to truth. No one believed that she could be a spy. The facts were in front of them. Fast forward, in 2001, she was finally captured spying for the Cuban government. So here is an example that Malcolm Gladwell has taken, which is how we default to the truth. The second reflection I have is on transparency. If you have grown up in the 90s, one of the most famous sitcom, Friends, I'm sure you have watched. In Friends, if you recall, there was one episode when Ross finds out about his best friend Chandler having an affair with Monica, his sister. And if you recall that episode, his jaws dropped, his eyes popping out. He was in complete shock. And by looking at his face, you can make out that he didn't know and he just came to know. That's how we are. We believe there's a certain amount of reaction to a particular situation people does. If you are happy, you smile. If you are too happy, you laugh. If there is sadness, you cry, so on and so forth. And what we forget that people comes from different zones, different countries, different region, and they have different ways to express themselves. Also, people are different from an overall standpoint. And one of the classic example that Malcolm Gladwell took was Amanda Knox. If you recall, this happened in the year 2007. A student from Seattle goes to Italy for studies as a student. She was staying with her roommate who was brutally killed. And what happened was she and her boyfriend entered the room. She found she was killed. She called the cops. When the cops came in, they didn't find any remorse on her face. She didn't express herself. She didn't even cry. And in fact, her friends were all crying. She was not. In fact, she was cuddling along with her boyfriend, and they were the prime suspects. They were put behind bars. In the jail, the first night, she was stretching around. The officer on duty asked her a question that you looks like you do a lot of exercise. She said, I can do a split as well. She goes, she runs, and she does a split. The elevators open at that point in time, and the top cop comes in, and he saw her splitting, and he's thinking this lady is not even having any remorse. She is having her own good time, and she was held for 4 years for a crime she has not done. Classic example of how we believe people should react, and that's the second lesson or the reflection I have is transparency. The third and the final one is coupling. Coupling is a very interesting phenomenon. If you the example taken in the book is about the San Francisco Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge. I live in the U.S. I've seen it multiple times, and I've driven over it as well. It's one of the famous bridge built in year 1937, and unfortunately, it became a suicide point. A lot of people died. In fact, if the stats goes right, up until recently, since it was open, 1,500 people had jumped from the bridge and given their life. And rightfully so, a lot of people thought how we can protect it. Some came up with the idea that how about we put a net just beneath the bridge so that if someone jumps, the net will catch them. It was put in front as a suggestion in front of the municipality board. They voted, it was ruled out. Why? Because they thought if someone wants to die, they will anyways die. Why to put millions of dollars of taxpayers' money into it? Believe it or not, it was not put until 2018, just about 2 years back. And if you look at the fact, I'll give you certain facts, which is very heartening. Um, Between the year 1937 and 1971, there are 555 people who tried to jump but couldn't jump. Someone stopped or something happened. Out of those 555 people who had stopped or who could not jump, only 25 of them actually committed suicide. That fact is good enough, but again, we believe that if someone wants to die, they will die. But there is a mechanics known as coupling. Now, another example I always take is shooting, right? If when unfortunate shooting happens in schools or in mall, you'll see that when one shooting happens, subsequent days, if you see the trend, there's a lot of research done on this topic. More shooting happens because people couple. There's always that thought in their people mind, and when they see someone doing it, they latch upon it and they react and behave in a particular way. So here are my three reflections. So in summary, the first one, default to truth. I would still say that we should default to truth. We should believe in humanity, but again with a pragmatism. We should have little pragmatic view to it so that we are not totally blindfolded. Transparency is a big lessons learned. We should not conclude that the way we behave or react, everyone should or way to behave. We have to understand culture, we have to understand people, and do not use our lens to measure someone else's behavior. And the third is coupling. If you understand the trend, wonders can be done. I hope you liked what you heard, and if you do so, please do leave a comment behind. If you believe that you want to see similar videos in the future, please do let me know in the comments once again. Thank you for listening, and you stay safe and be well.